Hello, everyone. My name is Eugene Rogers, and I'm the artistic director of the Washington Chorus. And we are so thrilled today to have Dr. Nkeiru Okoye, who's our composer on our upcoming concert of March 15th. And I have the chance to sit down and speak to her about her work and our world premiere. Good morning. Hello, Dr. Okoye.
Hello, Dr. Rogers. I am delighted to be here and thank you for taking these moments to talk to me.
Absolutely. And that's our goal, is to really help our audience enter into your work and talk a little bit about your compositional journey, especially as it includes this new work. And I have some more specific questions about the work, but really
Mhm.
who you are in your compositional journey and output, I'd say.
Sure, sure. I have been writing music for longer than I can remember, which, that sounds a bit lofty, but I remember when I was a kid, I would sing melodies that, in the children's books, they
Mm.
would have, a little poem that's supposed to be a song. And I would actually sing those songs, not
Mm.
knowing that other people don't hear that music in their head. I ended up going to Oberlin Conservatory and learned so much about new music. And I also had taken coursework equivalent to a minor or major in African American studies. A lot of the research methods that you see in a lot of my pieces come
Sure.
from just actually having those research methods and saying, hey, I want to know more. I want to learn about our culture and what can I do to just bring to light our accomplishments.
Sure. Often you write works, many people think of you as often someone who writes for orchestra and soloists.
Uh-huh.
Really, some would say even a little bit more operatic tendencies. How
Yes.
did you stumble on that? Is that intentional? How did that come through your work?
Well, it's just one of these things that happened organically because I
Mhm.
am not a singer. Uh,
I
as
love
I'm
that.
singing these, as I'm singing these lines, my neighbors think, "Oh, she's an opera singer," and I'm like, "Yeah, not an opera singer." But I developed an interest in opera
Mm,
writing Harriet Tubman.
yeah. Mhm.
Originally, and you know this, Harriet Tubman was going to be an oratorio, very much like the Undine Smith Moore piece that
Yes.
you did, yeah.
Yes.
And because I found out about that piece, I said, "Oh, I don't want to replicate what's already been done."
And just for folks who don't know, that scenes from A Life of a Martyr that we performed with the Washington Chorus in 2022, I think is when we did that. And so that work really was an inspiration to you writing Harriet Tubman.
Well, it was, but kind of an inspiration as to not what to do because the piece
Ah, mhm,
was so great.
mhm. Yes,
It was so profound. You know,
yes.
it's narrative, but then it is spirituals, and then it's more narrative. And I
Mm.
thought, I do not want to do something that is that similar to another Black woman's work.
Sure. And
Oh,
that leads us naturally to our work, that we have the wonderful of getting the live performance premiere of this work. And we know, and maybe our listeners don't know, that this and the People Celebrate It, which is about the first African American president in the United States. This work was originally commissioned by the BBC Radio 3. Share a little bit more, if you would, about how this work came about.
yeah. All right. Well, most pieces start off because we get this email. And so the email comes in, it's from the BBC. And I was like, wait a
I've
minute.
had those emails. I definitely understand.
Oh, so last summer, so it's the summer of 2024.
Mm,
And I was in the process of moving. And so we get this email and it's like, hey, the BBC is doing this series called 25 for
mhm.
2025.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So they're just celebrating the first quarter of the new millennium by having 25 new pieces. And so
Yeah.
one
Great.
was going to be, for a specific year and then tied to a world event that happened in that year. And
Oh,
so,
that's brilliant.
right, right.
I love it.
So they write to my publisher and they're like, so we would like Nkeiru to write about the historic election
Mm,
of Barack Obama in 2008, if
mm.
she like. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, see?
Yeah, yes. The work, for those who don't know it, is scored for full orchestra and narrator. There's no chorus. I wanted the chance for those who are listening from the Washington chorus community. And Nkeiru Okoye, as I said, created this wonderful oratorio, or really almost like a multi-genre experience with When the Caged Bird Sings. The Washington Chorus is scheduled to perform this work in the next several years. And I wanted to begin to introduce her to our community because I think she's extremely talented and also a dear, dear friend. So this work calls for narrator and orchestra only, features excerpts of several of his speeches. How did you go about selecting those, which speeches to incorporate? And I don't know if there was a reason why you particularly chose some of those.
When I started, I knew, okay, I'm going to use some of the Obama speeches. Then also, I thought, okay, I need to have a narration. It can't just be Obama speeches because no one is going to deliver them like Obama.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like Martin Luther King, no one delivers it quite right.
Oh, it's just not that. So it's really its overarching story.
Yes.
So I started by thinking, okay, let me see. What is it? What am I trying to say about him? So I thought first, let me describe him. And I'll also go back and say some of the design of this piece is based on the strictures that the BBC put on me. They said, look, we want this piece to be historic. It is not to be political. It is to be historic. It's supposed to be, we want to think about the celebration, especially of the African American people, but the worldwide celebratory feel.
Yes. Absolutely.
This is what we want. So I began to think, okay, what are some rhetoric styles that you hear that you'd be very obviously identifiable with either African American church or African American politicians. And so I started out with some and statements.
Yes.
Um, as we look at Obama, how do we know who he is?
Yeah.
And he was the senator from
Yeah.
Illinois, you know, and he was born in the 50th state.
Mhm.
And so it goes on like that.
I love that.
And
I love this line. And he was born of American and Kenyan blood, which I
yeah,
want to ask you about
yes,
that as well.
yes,
So that's a
yes.
wonderful connection there.
Yeah. So all of that really connects him and it really identifies who he is because,
Yes.
in the African sense, we're not really us as individuals. Who we are is very much who our community is, how
Mhm.
we fit into that community, how we
That's
fit into
powerful.
familiar lines.
Yes.
So yes, this is who he was. He was this senator and he was born, so it's all of these things. And so, but then it also talks about the obstacles that he faced and what made him so courageous for seeking the presidency. So, this first quote was from when he did the New Hampshire primary speech, and that's that "Yes, we can" speech.
Yes.
And we are all thinking, "Yes, we can." What,
Yeah.
what an incredible way to think about the spirit of Americans and of America. Yes, we can.
Yes.
So of course, that quote had to be in there. And the next one, as the piece goes on, it talks about, and he knew about the Middle Passage, and he knew about those who came before him, and he also knows that Martin, they assassinated him, they assassinated Kennedy, they assassinated Malcolm X. So the audacity that it takes for him to run
Yes.
still with that. So it says,
That's
when we have faced down, you know, um, when we have done this. But then also this second quote, it's hope is that thing inside us that
mm,
insists despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits for us. And I thought,
Yes.
wow,
Yeah.
wow,
Mm.
this man is still preaching the audacity of hope,
Yes, he is.
regardless of all these people who came before him. He's preaching this audacity. So, of course, that's there. And I use the word preacher because that's what it comes across. He is preaching this. He believes it. He's just there.
Yes.
So, that's how that second quote, that's how I ended up choosing that. Also, Obama was a spiritual man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this particular quote, it's a paraphrase
Mm.
from
Mm.
this familiar scripture in Hebrews, where it's talking about the faith chapter in the Christian
Yes.
Bible. It's
That's right.
faith is this thing,
Yes.
that look for it. And so I thought, okay, so let's include that. And then the last quote.
And I'm going to say before you talk about the last quote, as far as I am concerned, this is our kickoff of our Democracy 250 because this last quote, and I'm not going to let you, I'm not going to say it, I'm going to let you say it, but this last quote is the epitome of that. So please tell us about this last quote.
Okay. So the last quote, he has made it.
Yes.
He is at inauguration. Here it is, inauguration day. And all these people are gathered on the lawn.
Mm.
And he says, this is the price and the promise of citizenship. This is the meaning of our liberty and our creed.
Yes.
And he goes on to say, and why a man whose father less than 60 years ago might not have been served in a local restaurant,
Yes.
he can now stand before you and take a most sacred oath. Just, everything that I think of with that inauguration speech, this is the one that floors me.
Yes. That's right.
Because my father was an immigrant.
Yes. Mhm.
My father would not have been able
Yes.
to be served at that restaurant,
Right.
no?
Right.
And so here he is talking about this. We have come full circle
Yes.
through all
Yeah.
these things. And so,
And to
yes,
me, that's Democracy 250. We're still striving for that. I think it is a 250-year journey towards that. But that quote is showing us that we've gotten some things right along the way. And
yes,
that's great.
absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the music because one of the things that I think anyone can see that you're such a thoughtful composer, and hopefully all composers are, but that shines through in our conversations. Two things stand out for me. First of all, the presidential theme that I'd love to hear you talk to us about. And then one of my favorite things that you bring in is, and I won't misquote it, is the Ramogi. Um, which is of the Luo people, Obama's people of Kenya, that you bring in not only the presidential American-esque, if you will, but also the African Ramogi. Talk to us about this and how you were led to those ideals.
As I was thinking, how do I start this piece? I will sit down and look at my themes and I'll chart them all out.
Mm.
And, I'll sit down and have, okay, there's this theme, okay, and then there's this theme, and then there's this theme. And I do that before I start writing. So you have this one theme and it has this kind of Americana sound.
Mhm.
And it's slow, it's reflective, and it's noble sounding. And I thought, as I'm writing it into the score, it's got gravitas of a crown. I said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. That's entirely inappropriate. This is presidential. So it's actually marked where I usually have something that says regally, it says presidentially. And just gives you that idea. This is what a president you. It's got that gravitas. Yes.
Mhm. I love that.
So that's that one theme. And you mentioned the Ramogi. So the Ramogi is a dance from the Luo people. One thing that I really love to do, if I'm going to write a piece about a specific person, then I'm going to go in and find something that ties directly to it's a musical tribute to that person. And with Obama, I knew, I did a little research and he came from the Luo people of Kenya. So I sat down with a Kenyan musicologist. I had to find one. So we're talking about the different ceremonial dances in that culture. And the one that really stuck out at me for a number of reasons was this Ramogi dance. And there's a specific rhythm that
Yeah.
happens. And when you hear that rhythm, oh, okay, it's just African. It's very celebratory and it's very powerful, when you
Yes.
hear it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And what I love is, as we said, and the people celebrate it.
Yes.
You get this African theme that we hope to really make it even more rhythmic and festive for the
Absolutely.
concert
Yeah.
because
Yes.
I almost wish, there could be some claps with it because it has,
They can do that because the Ramogi is actually danced. The dancers have bells, they have ankle bells, like you see with Indian
yeah,
dancers. They have one
yes,
that's specific to Luo people. Now that's a little cost prohibitive to,
yeah,
go there and try to do that. So
yeah,
I tried my best. But
yeah,
you choir members, if you decided you just wanted to put a little stamp in there,
yes,
and
yes.
and Eugene, if you want to have a second trombone in there,
Mm,
the composer's not going to say, that's not what I wrote. Because know, with African rhythms, African celebration, there's often that sense of collaboration and that
oh,
mutual
yeah,
trust.
yeah.
I know that you're going to do this anyway because
Well, not without your permission, because we will sidebar about it because I think the chance for even make it even more celebratory in that ending is
absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
really a special thing. For those who don't know, our concert will open with Glory because it's really that arrangement is basically looking forward and saying we've got work to keep going, we've got work to do. Let's unite and get the work done. And then we move to sort of go backwards and think a little bit more about this wonderful moment in our country where we inaugurated, of course, our first African American president. That ends celebratory. Then we moved to Bernstein's also iconic work, Chichester Psalms, and Bernstein chose to end this work with how good it is for brethren and sisters to dwell together. He didn't say in unity, but he says to dwell together. And it's thought provoking the way he ends that piece. And we wanted to end that half really with that. Just go on the intermission and take a moment and think about that. And then we come back with Rollo Dilworth's Weather that uses a Claudia Rankine text. So the concert takes people on a journey from looking backwards to one of call to action to one of hope. And I think it couldn't be even more appropriate than now to have, I think, all of these pieces together. And we hope people leave the concert reflecting, feeling charged, feeling hopeful, feeling like they can continue the path on the path, and celebrating, right? And the people celebrated. We also have things still to celebrate. That
Oh, we
just
absolutely do.
and
Absolutely.
that's important. What is one thing you want? I've talked about sort of as an artistic director how I sort of curated, these pieces, but I'd love to hear as a composer, what's one thing you really want the audience to either take away or pay attention to when they're listening to your piece for the first time?
Well, this is an American story. People who came to this country, regardless of what it was, um, we all have American stories. We all have in common having gotten here from someplace else. And look at this meteoric rise from this man who, um, again, father was an immigrant. What can you do? How can you have your meteoric rise, and how
Yes,
can we celebrate?
yes. Absolutely. And I think all of our pieces, now
Mhm.
that's the goal, is to have show many different American stories as
Yeah.
we celebrate this rich country. I think all of those stories have to be told. And thank you so much, Dr. Okoye, for bringing this story to us. It's not too soon. It was 2008. You know, we're almost looking at now 20 years ago that this happened. And so, thank you for your work, the research you've done, for taking us on a bit of a journey from when where he came from and how again we all hopefully can have our own version. And some are more celebratory than others, but the goal is that we all have something to celebrate as we think about our journey in this country. Thank you so much for today. And I look forward to having you in person at our concert on March 15th. There will be a post-concert talk with Dr. Okoye and Dr. Dilworth talking about these two works together. And we hope you all will join us for the concert and the post-concert talk. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.